Hello? Is anyone there? Can you hear me?
Okay, good day all. How are we doing today?
Good day, how are you?
Anybody out there
Hello?
in this Zoom
Can y'all
world?
hear me?
Right here, y'all. Slight headache, y'all, but I right here.
Can y'all hear me?
Oh, I have the earphones in and I can't hear y'all. I'm looking at this and nobody responding to me. Senior moment.
Oh,
Y'all can hear me? How y'all doing today?
we're good, we're good.
Okay.
That's good, that's good. So we had a chance to look at the review sheet and we all came prepared.
Yes.
Oh, excellent, excellent. I
I'm
just
gonna
come out
be
of a class where I talk for 3 hours straight. So I only come in this class to chill out today. This is our last class.
Is there any particular order that we're gonna be going in, or it doesn't matter?
But I guess we can start from question 1. So whoever wants to volunteer, from question 1, that would be good. And so everybody who had planned to, I guess, answer question 1 can respond if, the person, if you miss anything. Everybody has their copy with them, or I need to bring it up on the screen?
I'm pulling it up right now on my phone.
Okay.
The first one is the Egmont group.
Okay, and
I wonder if I should put this in the group chat.
So we want to ensure that we answer all parts of the question. So sometimes, of course, we would have discussed human trafficking and smuggling and illicit pornography. And so we see the Eggman group and we say, okay, fine, we can talk about the Eggman group. But then it specifically asks about research and Bahamas, right? And so we want to ensure that we would have done our research already and you know, we say if this is applicable in the Bahamas and what happens there. So don't only focus on the Eggman group. Don't only focus on the two typologies and forget about the Bahamas or any other parts of the question. Because normally each question has 3 parts. So ensure that you answer all parts. Okay, so you want to start with the Eggman group. Who is the Eggman group? And remember, this will be one of your mandatory questions. So you need 20 points, not just 10. So you want to start with a bit of history.
Okay, well, I chose the role of the MLRO, which is a little bit further down the list.
Okay. Okay, so since we could go in order, well, of course, this is the mandatory question, so everybody should have this on there, you know, and there are 2 choices. One is going to be Bahamas related in terms of our recent updates. And I think that's question, what is it, 4?
Repeat, Nicole, what you said.
What question talks about I'm trying to pull it up right now.
Yes, which question talks about what?
The industry updates. Or it says FATF, IMF.
The number 4.
Number 4.
Yeah, number 4, right.
Yes.
Right. So you'll have a choice. Because a lot of persons ask for a choice with the mandatory question. They just didn't want one question. And so I think one of the other choices is the industry updates. What has happened in the Bahamas in terms of what did the FATF say? What did the IMF say? What did, you know, whomever else came in. So we leave that for now and let's focus on the question 1. So the Eggman group, who wants to answer this?
The Eggman group is a group of, let me see if I can remember offhand. It's a group of different countries, different, I guess, not FIUs, but
they're FIUs. You correct.
what is the FIU? Oh, I was thinking the big banks like the Wells Fargo and those. So
No,
this is
that's the Wolfsburgs where they have the major banks. So the Eggman is the
FIUs.
Yes.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I guess they do their research as well, but it's like they back up all of the principles, the guiding principles from the IMF and the FATF, like so many other of those too. And so, of course, we did homework with the human trafficking, kidnapping, and illicit pornography. And in terms of local examples, of course, we have the Adrian Fox with the human trafficking. And we have, well, I don't know any illicit pornography offhand, though I did see something where a man was wanted either last week or week before for child pornography. So probably you could look up on that case.
Okay,
and
what about all those strip clubs that were closed down?
Okay.
And those persons brought before the courts?
Well,
I don't know anything about it. So that's something I definitely can research.
Okay.
Before y'all get too far, the Eggman group, they also share information between each other. So that I think that's a good point to add when we're answering that question in particular. I don't know if anyone agrees.
Okay, I do agree, but I don't want you to say only that they share information. You should say that they share information and it's been beneficial because.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can start with the Belarus case or the other case or the Russian case, say, and say this is how their working together has been beneficial. For example, in the case, you know, regarding human trafficking and they're working together and sharing of information help them to be able to, you know, bring these persons before the court or charge them or what have you. So don't just make a one-off statement that they work it together and share information. It has been beneficial in this way or that way.
Also, they gave a cross-section of cases for review in terms of their best Egmont Case Awards or the Becker Awards.
Okay, so yeah, you can put that in.
What does this HT/K/IP stand for, Ms. Bullard?
Where are you reading that from? The book?
The sheet, Egmont Group typology is AT/K/IP/Bahamas.
So, human trafficking,
Human
illicit
trafficking, and
pornography, kidnapping.
kidnapping.
Okay.
Okay, good. So, good. Of course, we'll open with an overview of who the Eggman Group is and say they work together in cooperation, they share information, and it's been beneficial. And then we will go into the two typologies. Okay, very good. Explaining what happened and how it was related.
What two
Okay, and then we want to bring it.
What two typologies, Ms. Bullard?
The ones that you would have read at the back of your book.
Oh yeah, okay.
The ones on human trafficking, illicit pornography.
Okay.
Those ones. Yeah,
Okay.
and so you want to put in an overview of those two, and then you want to move on. You could include, I know for homework we did, the 75,000 women in America. You can tie that in. You can also tie in the persons in Essex in the UK, what happened with them. Again, because all of this is relevant and it brings adds points to get you to your 20 points. Then you can move on to the Bahamas. And so I want you to really do some research because the question is focused around the Bahamas and the Eggman Group. And so I had some persons sit the exam that was similar to it last week, and they went in full detail about the Eggman Group, but they missed the Bahamas completely, so they lost almost like 7-8 points by leaving the Bahamas out. So the question is centered around the Bahamas, so please do your research, okay? Because in terms of human trafficking, you know, with the Haitians and all these migrants, the boats being capsized and the people being told, you know, pay $5,000 and we'll take you to America. That has happened many times, and there's been many Haitian nationals that were found like afloat in the back of the Defense Force base, and these weren't the ones that just came from Haiti. These were the ones that had U.S. money on them. They were well dressed. One of the ladies was in COB attending class, but somebody told her pay $5,000 and they'll take it to America. And all of this is on in the Guardian and the Tribune and on the internet. So I want you to do your research in regards to Bahamas. Okay.
Excuse me, Miss Bullard. So tying that in, is that tying into the human trafficking aspect or specifically related? Let me finish the question, please. Or is that talking about what's it called? Tying the Egmont Group specifically to the Bahamas, because that's two different things. Is the Egmont Group specifically have dealings or anything that has to do directly related to the Bahamas?
Well, of course, our Bahamas FIU is a part of the group, right? So the Eggman Group is a group of FIUs around the world, right? And so our Bahamas FIU would be affiliated with it, right? So like I said, the question has three parts: the Eggman Group and their cooperations, what is happening in the world, and then you can tie in the Bahamas. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So basically, don't really, because when I hear the Egmont Group, that's supposed to mean a group of like I guess the most prominent FIU, the most prominent financial intelligence units.
No,
but we're not a part of that, right?
No, all whilst they may not be full members, all work with in terms of cooperation and all share information, and so they are definitely affiliated. They may not be like on the board that makes the decisions, but they definitely do share information. Because the other day, when I filed an STR, I did not, it was for a director. Now I had the date of birth, and the newspapers did not say what the date of birth is, but the name was the same. And so what I did is when I found my STI, I told them I was unaware. I've done my research, and our date of birth for our client is May 5th, 2020. However, online I could not find. I saw all the documents where the person was charged. I could not find who the date of birth was. I think the person was out of Panama, and so they said, okay, fill out the information, give us as much information as you have, and we will liaise with the FIU in Panama to find out the date of birth of the person that was charged. And they were able to come back within 3 months and tell me, no, that's not, the date of birth was different. But they appreciated that I filed the STI and ensured that, this person wasn't one of our clients. So they do share the information. And they do cooperate and liaise with each other. So I can't tell you what their direct affiliation is, but they do work together.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Okay,
Ms.
great.
Bullard, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Let me just get I want to make sure I understand this. Okay, so you see like how the two typologies, they would have stated how I guess the FIUs would have been able to collaborate with other countries to crack down on whatever crime that was happening with the two typologies. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same for the Bahamas. We just can make mention of some of the crimes that have been going on in terms of human trafficking and all of that, but not necessarily to say that the FIU or Edmund Group was able to assist us in solving some of the crimes that was happening. I just really
No, you don't have to focus on that again. We just saying this is an introduction. The question, I can't give you the question, but for what I can give you to put you on the right track is it will just ask you how is the cooperation then beneficial, something to that aspect. And just for points, if you want, because the question is worth 20 points, you will perhaps start with a history, perhaps say this is what happened, this is what they do, this is how they cooperate, and this is why it's beneficial. This is just some tips to build you up to the 20 points.
Okay, so you will give an example of the two typologies and how they collaborate and so forth. But when you talk about the Bahamas, you will just talk about. I mean, I'm not asking you to give me the answer. I just want to make sure that I'm on the right track, as opposed to like talking about, like you were saying earlier about
the person's missing the Bahamas, so
clubs and all these stuff that have been created and so forth, and trafficking and all that stuff.
Right.
Okay. All right.
So you want to go online and see what has happened in the Bahamas in regards to human trafficking, what has happened in the Bahamas in the regards to illicit pornography. In fact, you'll be very surprised that what Wikipedia has said about the Bahamas in regards to this. And so in your research, you may want to go that route and see what they say, and you'll be very surprised. Okay? But I don't want to give you any more information because I borderline giving you the question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Ms. Bullard, if I saw Wikipedia, Wendy.
Hi, Wendy. How you doing today?
Yeah,
but you always telling me you weren't participating, and then you was being on this right away.
No. Yeah, because I definitely want to listen in, but I just wanted to share with my classmates that with the Egmont Group question, the homework assignment that we had previously been given, if you look at what the requirements were for that homework assignment, and you follow that essentially would provide, in my opinion, it would provide the answer for this question. The homework assignment that we already answered.
And that's correct. And this is why we did it. And so I switched the question around a little bit, and that some of that information that you would have put in there is relevant. You will get points for it, but I couldn't give you the exact question. Okay, so it's going to be slightly different, but everything you would have done in your homework can be used, to answer all these questions on the exam. Because again, we don't want to test memory, we want to test understanding. Right. And once you understand and you know how to operate when you go back to work, that's the purpose of this course. Now, to protect yourself and your institution, that's the aim of this course. So, you know, we hope that you don't just remember a bunch of stuff, but be able to, you know, have a scenario and from the research you've already done, make it applicable to the new scenario, knowing how to tie it in and which parts are relevant and not relevant. So don't just go and remember your homework and, you know, just paste it back on your exam. The question is slightly different. The focus is slightly different. And so I would hope that you would have, you know, now continued on your research and can add more meat in terms of, is this happening in the Bahamas? What are we doing? Are we aware? You know, and we're working to ensure that, you know, we mitigate these risks.
Okay, Ms. Bullard, in terms of the examples that the questions may ask for generally on the exam, would you say at least 2 examples of the Bahamas or 3 examples would give you sufficient points?
Yeah,
or are you looking for more meat, or are you looking for the variety of examples?
No, 2 is sufficient for the 10-point questions, 3 for the 20-point questions. And please explain it. So
okay.
For a lot of people want to use the Adrian Fox case. So fine, but make sure that you understand what happened in the case and be able to just provide an overview of it. You know, why is he allowed to get away with this for so long? Why hasn't the U.S. sent a subpoena? Why hasn't he been extradited? Why is this being allowed?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you want the meat. Okay.
Yeah. So 3 examples for the 20-point and 2 for the 10-point question, and you should be okay.
Okay, so the 20-point question is the mandatory question?
Yes, and so there's going to be a choice between the Egmont group, because a lot of persons in the other class complained that they didn't want to just have that one, you know, that was going to be difficult. So I said, okay, fine. And so question 4 talks about the IMF, the FATF, and the developments, you know, that the Bahamas has gone through to curb some of these deficiencies. And so, of course, we know that, you know, the FATF was supposed to come in here in May and help us out, and the pandemic prevented them from helping us. And so, therefore, we were blacklisted on that account. At least they're stating that that is one of the reasons. We know that previously when they came in, we were deficient in 22 of the recommendations. And so we updated, revamped, and repealed a lot of our laws in 2018 to satisfy, for example, our real estate agents and who was it? Lawyers and accountants are now regulated by the, you know, Compliance Commission. Our risk assessment, while it was in place, it was not being enforced. The regulators created analytics departments. The governor is trying to ensure that our risk rating doesn't go to high risk, and so therefore he has created the DARE bill that deals with digital currency to ensure that we are no longer seen as cash intensive. And he also decreased the leverage. Our leverage used to be about 300 or 400. I think Neil explained that to us and how it worked in another class. So these are some of the initiatives they did, you know, to comply with new legislation and to ensure that we follow international standard. Later on, the IMF came in, and in December, they...
All right, thank you.
Okay, yeah, so IMF came in December, and they talked about our disaster recovery plan, and that was very helpful to us. That saved us in regards to Hurricane Dorian. So they are the initiatives and the changes or what have you that we're talking about in chapter for question 4, which would be the choice of the mandatory question. So whichever one you choose to answer.
Okay.
Okay,
So
so
the
are we
other
good with?
ones, 10 points, right?
Yeah, the other ones are 10
questions are
points.
just.
Those two would be 20.
So all in all, I was trying to work out, is this particular exam worth 100%? I know it's worth 70% towards our grade, but is it 100%?
No, it's out of 90.
It's on a 90. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, so are we good with question 1 and 4? We know how to answer that. We know what the expectation is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Good. And anybody else? Gabriella, you comfortable?
I'm good with it. I'm just writing notes.
Okay. Williams?
I'm good.
Okay, good. Ratalia?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, good. I was trying to reach Chris. Chris Williams. Is that how you pronounce your name, Chris? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Kyra.
Kyra, okay. Yeah, so you good with that response?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. Okay, so question 2 is sanctions. And again, it says the sanctions framework. Why is it important to have a robust sanction framework? Crystal?
Now, Miss Bullet, you know this is a cookie for me.
I thought this would be a question right away.
Child, please. Okay, well, we can take a stab at it. This is the purpose of the call. So, and to me, it's important to have a robust framework because, I mean, in terms of risk, you want to make sure that those who are interested in illicit activities aren't attracted to your country or, you know, your
institution.
Yeah, your institution, because you know you're easy target. So you want to have those walls built up to turn away those that are trying to deceive and monopolize on any shortcomings in your financial system.
Okay, very good. NECA, you want to add why else is it important? What about your staff in terms of training and awareness?
Okay, so you want to ensure, just like you do with the anti-money laundering training, you want to ensure that all employees, especially those on the front line, are trained. So when persons are being onboarding on new accounts are coming in, as well as the ongoing customer due diligence, you want to check the sanctions listing to make sure that persons or institutions do not have any sanctions against them.
Okay, very good. And Davina, the categories? And Bristol? We can't have Bristol. Role, the categories for sanctions? No, we don't have Nikita role. Okay, anybody who...
Sorry, Ms. Bullet, sorry, I had you guys on mute. For the categories, we mean like economic, financial, sanctions, those types, like that?
No, what are the categories?
Counterterrorism.
Yeah, there you go.
Terrorism, conflict resolution, protection of civilians, non-proliferation, and pronounce the one? Yeah, that.
Right, and so we don't
democratization.
Right, and so we don't. Right, so we don't only want to list those.
Page 27.
Right, so we want to explain at least 2 of those. If we do list the categories, we want to have some explanation. We don't only want to list if you want to get a full point.
So
okay,
Miss Bullard, do we talk about the various targeted sanctions also?
Of course,
okay.
Of course you do, yeah. And
Want
then
me to give examples too?
Yes, please, and give. There are lots of examples online in terms of Venezuela and Cuba and even Russia. So yeah, you could give live examples in terms of COVID-19. So there's more than one sanctioned question on this exam, and so in terms of COVID-19 and the countries needing aid, what would you add after you would explain the types? And the categories, what would you say in regards to COVID-19?
The Pope on Easter Sunday. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, the Pope on Easter Sunday was also asking for an easement of sanctions on the countries.
Okay.
Because of the COVID-19. And many countries were appealing like to the U.S. To ease sanctions on for humanitarian reasons, for persons to be able to get aid to help them battle the COVID-19 crisis in their countries. And even Cuba, as a sanctioned country, surprisingly was able to pull out and provide their medical assistance to other countries also.
Okay, very good. So definitely we want those examples. We also, anything happen in regards to the Bahamas?
With regard to the Bahamas,
in terms of
would it be applicable to talk about how our shipment of PPE got held up, I guess, as they investigated to determine whether or not it was it should have been leaving the United States or whatever have you?
Yeah, but you will say, even though Bahamas is not a sanctioned country, you know, we did have an issue with that, but you want to make sure not to say that sanctions, you know, we are sanctioned, but yeah, we did have that issue. Yeah, we're not
sanctioned, but it still has a far-reaching effect.
Right. So fine, if you want to tie that in from the Bahamas aspect, that's fine. Okay, and then we know that Iran was beckoning to the IMF to borrow some money, and I think the UK stepped in. I think the US said no, but the UK stepped in and sent them 500,000 or million euros. So again, that's another good example. Because of course we know that Iran is sanctioned. Okay, and we know like Val said, you know, Cuba, while being sanctioned, they sent their doctors to Italy. They sent doctors to at least 3 or 4 other countries as well. And I think offered us some assistance as well. And I think we, you know, they sent some doctors down into, I don't know, I'm not certain if it's Antigua or one of those Caribbean countries in Bahamas. I actually picked them up from Cuba. Yeah, what country was that?
That somewhere down in the Caribbean. I can't recall right off.
Right.
Ms. Bullard, what I don't understand though, any idea why we have not sought their assistance?
Or at least collaborated in some way.
Well, we have collaborated because we assisted them by picking the doctors up from Cuba and dropping them to the country. So there has been some collaboration. And I would imagine that in those same talks, we would have, you know, discussed, I guess they would have discussed whether or not we need assistance or not. Now, I guess we have sufficient. I mean, I know that the Prime Minister had come on TV and said, anybody who's in the medical profession, please, you know, come out and assist. But whilst we may have a very high number, 92, I don't think many of those persons are hospitalized. So I don't think that we are at the overwhelming state now, like how New York or Italy is, where persons are outside and they need medical attention. Right? So I don't think they're to that nowhere near that point. And hopefully we don't get there.
My internet is in and out, but that note there, I think the reason that we haven't sought their assistance yet is because, I guess, maybe, like Ms. Bullard said, because we're not as our numbers are not as high, they probably feel as though they have it under control. Now, what they need assistance with is dealing with how we address this staying at home and self-isolation business. This is clearly not working.
Yeah, but you know, it's just a protection of your own personal health and your own life. And so,
I agree.
to me, either
and
you are
now they can't find 12 people.
Oh, you mean in terms of tracking those persons? Yeah.
Tracking the people, yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, this was new. A lot of persons were unprepared, and I'm not trying to justify, but you know, we are normally very reactive rather than proactive. And so now they know. I think that the new set of persons that came in yesterday, they took the passports. You know, and those people are being very vocal all over line, complaining about
very ungrateful from what I saw.
Right.
That's wrong. Miss Bullard, the doctors went to St. Lucia.
Okay, to St. Lucia. So yeah, definitely you want to say that, you know, whilst Cuba is heavily sanctioned by the US, not by the Bahamas, you know, during this pandemic, we were able to assist them. Yeah, hopefully with no ramifications. You know, who knows what's going to happen later. But yeah, so they would have gone, the government and the Ministry of Health, trial and error process, and now they took the passports of these persons they brought in yesterday, and so they actually know who they are and probably could perhaps track them better, hopefully. You know, but it's a trial and error process. If everybody would, you know, try and be responsible for themselves,
and
cooperate and understand that, again, whilst it's, you know, this was not planned and they were unprepared, and so yes, we blame them for being the government, being in charge and being unprepared. However, at this point, it's no use, you know, arguing over that, but try and cooperate, try and assist by helping to stop the spread. Only go out if it's absolutely necessary, and if you do go out, wear your mask and stay 6 feet apart. I don't know, you know, the churches are complaining that you know, they open the bars before the churches. I will still not go to church. My church is online, and even if my church is not online, I have a relationship with the Lord. I'll have my own service where 2 or 3 have gathered. The Lord is present, and so I don't understand why, like everybody says, for the tithes or whatever. So I'm not going to risk my life.
Because I think it's a totally different situation with the, I mean, I don't really agree with it, but it is what it is. But the bars are doing the curbside. You don't really do a curbside church.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I guess, you know, I have a problem in leadership and people in position just try and be confrontational for no reason. I mean, because we know that, you know, and you could tell me, being a head of a Christian council, you don't see the difference between somebody driving up to a bar versus people gathering and sitting in the church.
That's a big difference.
Taking communion from the same cup, as well as peace greeting that every church has. So I don't know. Anyway, but y'all just try to.
I think the government opened, not necessarily the bars, but more the liquor stores, because they need to get the economy going. Because now, once the economy is going again, then you have money generating, because the church don't pay no taxes. Now the bars, the liquor stores and whatever, that they got to pay them back. The church don't pay no VAT. But I mean, not saying that is justifying it, but they're just trying to move this economy slowly but surely. And the church is just more or less looking to make sure that the people who they don't lose out more than they've already lost.
Agreed, but there's always balance. There always needs to be balance. So, you know, whilst the economy needs to get going, you don't want to take all the money from the economy and have to spend it on healthcare and possibly lose your life.
Yeah,
so I think all of that in mind.
I think they're thinking about safety from the church perspective. I don't think they would, if they could have, I don't think they would have prohibited the gathering, but I think the bigger issue is the safety factor.
Okay, good. Okay, so put all of that in your paper about sanctions. Good. And so we'll talk some
Miss
more in
Bullard.
the news. You'll talk more in the news afterwards. So for the persons who don't like to talk as much as us, let's get through the review sheet and then they can leave and we can carry on. Okay.
Miss Bullard, I was just saying, with regards to the doctors and the Bahamas, not reaching out to Cuba. Also, isn't that a paid service that the Cuban doctors they provide a paid service, right? You have to pay them.
Yes,
so
I don't think
that may factor in.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be free. It may be.
Yeah,
I don't think it can be free, man. It have to be paid.
Yeah, you pay them. You pay them. And that was one of the issues that the U.S. had with. That's why the U.S. encouraged. We're trying to encourage people not to make use of them because the U.S. feels that the Cuban system of paying, because when you pay for the medical services, only a portion of the money goes to the actual doctors.
Right.
A bulk of the money goes back into the government. To the government, and so the U.S. is trying to say that is inhumane and that sort of thing, and so they try to discourage people from supporting that service because they don't want to support that whole method.
Yeah,
so
it's
adding to the sanction.
Yeah, but I don't really agree with that. I mean, like in Venezuela, the government, they go into joint ventures and most persons work for the government. In Cuba, citizens only pay 15 cents for gas. They have the best health care in the world. They have very good schools. They have some of the best sports programs in the world. So therefore, I don't have a problem supporting a government when you can see,
see where the money
older
going.
people, right, you could see where the money going. And in Cuba, you could walk through the streets 2, 3 o'clock in the morning because the army is on every corner, like how our police trying to be out on every corner now. In Cuba, you walk any hour of the night. And so I don't have a problem supporting a government when you see things like that. I don't have a problem. But when you don't see things happen and you can't account for the VAT money and you don't know where it's going, then that's an issue. So, yeah. Okay, so we'll get back to all of that. Very good insight. Risk framework, risk appetite, risk rating. Who's going to attempt that question?
Ms. Bullard, before you go on to the risk, in terms of the sanctions, I just have a question concerning when you said the main categories, you're talking about the 5 main categories of counterterrorism, conflict resolution, those, correct?
Yes.
And when you're talking about targeted, it's more the travel bans, the embargoes, and the individual concerning the financial services and the restrictions there. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome. Okay, risk. And anybody has risk now? A lot of your multiple choice, there are I think 15 or 20 multiple choice in true and false. And so a lot of these are centered around risk, and I think I gave you some of them in the homework. So in terms of risk framework, where do we come up with this word risk? Where does it stem from?
Recommendation one from the FATF.
Okay, very good. Okay, and so in this framework, what do we expect?
Well, we want to definitely set it up where we have the
3 parts, right? 3 parts.
Right. The
risk appetite.
Right. Oh, talk about that one first.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the risk appetite, we want to establish what is our risk appetite, what we're willing to deal with. Are we going to take on PEPs? Are we not going to take on PEPs? What about government accounts? Are we going to take those on or not? We just have to settle for our institution what we're willing to deal with versus what we're not willing to deal with. Are we going to deal with Russia? Are we going to deal with Iran? Stuff like that.
And we want to say, are we going to deal with high risk or sanctioned countries?
Right. Okay. So make sure we do that. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, you don't want to just say Russia or Iran. What does the significance of them? They are high risk or sanctioned countries, or you say, for example, Russia or Iran.
Got you. Okay. Right. And then for the risk framework, we would map out in our AML guidelines and procedures what it is that we should do in terms of when we should apply simplified versus enhanced due diligence training, so that we can know that our staff is well educated on what it is that they need to look out for, red flags and all of these things.
So all of that will fall under the risk assessment. So the risk framework, which should be threefold: the risk appetite, the risk assessment, and the risk rating. And so, right, all of those will fall under when we complete our risk assessment of our business.
Bullard, I have a question. Risk rating will stem from the risk appetite, right? When you be able to determine whether the client is high, medium, or low. That's what risk rating is all about, right?
Yes.
And that will come from the appetite based on what you accept.
Right. So
accept.
Right. So you would iron out these are the products and services. This is what we consider high risk. This is what we consider low risk. And then you risk rate your products and services, and then you risk rate your clients.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and then we all know how the risk rating works, right? And some of the categories that should be in the risk rating are?
If the person is a PEP, if they're doing business with a high risk country, if their transaction, like what their dollar value on their transactions, the approximate amount will be, the amount of transactions.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, and then we know about assessing the risk, identifying the risk. Then we know about the risk control library. We're aware of all of that, correct?
The risk control library.
Yes. So if the question was to ask you, what information would you find on your risk control library?
I see it. Customer due diligence, regular customer review. You mean like that? Monitoring procedures, working alerts. Okay.
Yeah.
How much of these you need to know? Just a few.
Yeah, just a few, 3 or 4 the most. It just depending on which question you choose and how it's set up. I think there are 2 or 3, some multiple choice on risk, and then 2 or 3, maybe perhaps 2 of the choices are on risk.
Okay.
Okay, so it just depends on which question you answer. Okay, we discussed question 4 when we talked about the international bodies coming in, the initiatives. We could say that, of course, right now we mad at the EUA for the EU for blacklisting us, but then we are thankful. They're seeing us as a regulator. Everything is happening hard and fast. Every time we put stuff in place, they come up with more stuff. But in 2018, they did help us with the disaster recovery fund. We did listen, we did implement, and immediately September, we had the category 5. It was good that we paid the insurance, so we got the money. It was good that we put some of the dormant funds aside, and so all of that has helped. It was good that we secured the line of credit with the IDB, so all of that assisted us. Okay, so they are the initiatives from the FATF and the IMF, and of course, you could talk about us being blacklisted right now. I don't even know what to say about.
That don't even seem to be fair, because like COVID-19 is beyond anyone's control. So why couldn't they have delay? I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. Like they don't even give grace for. I mean, situations beyond anyone's control, like quote unquote acts of God.
Well, I don't know if they did give us 18 years to put all these stuff in place before they came in and did the mutual evaluation. They probably fed up. We are the competition. They want to wipe us out. They're not only doing it in this jurisdiction. Like I talked to a colleague from Switzerland. He said they had 250 banks. They now have 50. And so this regulation has really, really wiped out economies all around the world. And so they need this tax money. You know, they need their especially now with this pandemic and you know, everything is crashed. They definitely don't want any money in offshore jurisdictions. Anybody defrauding the system, the little loopholes that they put in place, they don't even want those anymore. They just want this money to come back into their country so their country can survive. And so you know, they say the best time to get your man is when he's down. And so who knows? Maybe this will, they're using it to force their hand. I know they are very disappointed that they didn't get to come in, especially into the FIU, because they wanted to make sure that these persons that are currently charged with money laundering are brought before the courts. And God help that last politician. Did his case come up yet? The last politician. Anybody know? Dorset.
Oh,
Kendrick Dorset. I don't think his case, he's the last one because Frank Smith is already cleared. Gibson cleared. And so I'm certain they are annoyed at that because, like I said, around the world, especially in the Caribbean, presidents are being impeached. Governors of the central bank are going to jail. Netanyahu right now, it's in a big mix-up where, you know, they had accused him of some type of bribery and corruption, but he is set to be sworn in, and they got a new judge who for the last, I guess, 10 years has fought against him, who has now said that even though he has this bribery case, we will still swear him in as president again. And so I'm telling you that that's gonna shed a negative light on Israel, and so they're probably headed there as well. And so, you know, I don't know. They promised to discuss these things and give us a chance to respond, because the last time that we were blacklisted, sometime in 2018, it was because the technical board did not receive advice from the executive board, and so they didn't get the information in a time frame before they blacklisted us. And so this is why they have agreed to ensure that they don't make an error by blacklisting us, that they advise us that this is the decision and we have a time frame to respond. But I don't know, all of it's out the window. I stopped keeping abreast. I'm not alarmed. I didn't even disseminate the information throughout my organization. I said, whenever you all hear it, and come and talk to me about it. You know, I'll talk to you all about it. But, you know, I don't know what to say. I honestly don't. I know we had some problems, and I know we do need to fix a lot of things. But again, it wipes out our economy. So, you know, the government has to do what it has to do to, you know, keep some of these banks open.
Ms. Bullard, can I ask you to just highlight some of the issues you mentioned? I was trying to take notes.
Oh, you mean on question 4?
Yes, please, on the IMF and the FATF.
Okay, so we want to talk about the Bahamas, of course, and some of the deficiencies or some of the initiatives that the Bahamas took to answer to some of these deficiencies. So if you want to start with the FATF, of course, you can talk about the mutual evaluation of July 2017. You can say that the Guardian or Tribune reported that we were deficient in 22 of the 40 recommendations. Then you can say that, for example, I forget what you call it, the DMFP is the law firms. I can't ever get that acronym for life, but the law firms, the real estate, and accounting firms were not previously regulated, and now they are regulated by the Compliance Commission. They have to have a MLRO on staff and establish a compliance department. You can talk about the DARE bill, where we, you know, whilst our risk assessment is still outstanding and we looked online and we saw that this is no data available, we are working behind the scenes to get all of the groups together: insurance, gaming, banking, and securities together to ensure that we fill out this risk assessment. But in the meantime, the governor wants to ensure that we're not labeled as high risk. So he has created a digital currency. It's called the DARE bill, and they have a white paper out right now, you know, to get feedback to ensure that this digital currency works. They tested it in Exoma. It seemed to be working, and that is supposed to make us less cash intensive, as well as they decreasing the leverage on the security side. Okay, all of this is to help us not be labeled as high risk when the risk assessment is fully all persons are on board, all industries in the financial service sector is on board and able to then answer their sections of this risk assessment that's going to go to the Basel Committee. Then we can talk about the IMF, and we can say that they came in, they did a review, and out of their consultation paper, they suggested, they saw that our disaster relief fund was a disaster, and they asked us to update it immediately. And the government, luckily, you know, the opposition felt that it was a waste of time because we were not paid in our last hurricane because it was not a category 5 and we didn't have excessive rain. So more than likely we wasted $90,000 to pay this insurance. But the F&M decided to pay the insurance, and the same year we had a category 5 on excessive rain, so we got some $14 million from paying that insurance. We also put aside our dormant funds. We had $88 million in the dormant funds, and so a section of that now was for the recovery of Dorian. And then we also secured a $1 million line of credit to the IDB. So those 3 initiatives we put in place to satisfy, you know, the IMF had asked us for an action plan. What are we going to do? And we said, this is our action plan. And lo and behold, some 6 months later, we had to put that plan into action. So it was because of the pressures from the IMF in their visit. Because we could have said, we have so many other things to focus on. Yeah, we'll get to the disaster. Already the opposition does not agree with us paying this $90,000. We need money needs to go elsewhere in the economy. And they debated it and said it was a waste of time and all the problems that they had when they paid it. So they didn't support it being paid again. Nevertheless, the F&M listened, they acted swiftly, and 6 months later, it was in our benefit.
So the line of credit with the IMF was 1 million? With
the IDB. You'd have to Google it. Somewhere around there. I can't remember all these things in my head.
I can fact check it. Yeah,
fact check me. I could be wrong, but I ain't too far. Fact check everything I say.
I was gonna ask you that, Ms. Bullard. So to find out more information on these various things, you basically have to Google and search it up because it's not anything that's gonna be captured in this book.
Right. So
class, right?
Right. I don't have next to that research required. Or requires research?
Not that particular
question. I'm sorry.
No, but I mean just in general, I was just asking in general, some of the stuff in order to find the information, you actually have to search it up because it's not in the class provided material.
No, because it's going to ask you. Right. Yeah, but we discussed it. We discussed the mutual evaluation, right? And we discussed it might have been an intro where we talked extensively about the disaster recovery.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that requires.
Some of this I'm hearing for the first time today.
Okay, so requires research, yes. But again, if it's not, we would have talked about some of the initiatives, the 22, you know. But yeah, Google some stuff. I'm sorry if I didn't put it on the sheet. Okay, but anybody comfortable with answering that question? Somebody who would have been like Gabriella, you would have been an intro. Neil, Ochi, would you take a stab at that question?
Sorry, what is the question?
Question 4 about the IMF, the FATF, and any initiatives in the Bahamas.
All right, I have to look at the question itself.
No, I mean, what we just discussed, I'm asking you, would you choose?
I think I'm more comfortable after the Bahamian example, the local example.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, definitely more comfortable now.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay. So any other questions surrounding question 4? No? Okay. Question 5, do you have tax avoidance and tax evasion? Because I believe I'm looking at the wrong version. you all have tax avoidance, tax evasion for question 5?
Yes, we do.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Ma'am.
Okay, so we covered that extensively. We know what these do when we come to customs. We know when we ship in these fridge and stove. We know what these do with these invoices for these car parts. We know the difference between tax avoidance and tax evasion. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So what example did we use, Crystal?
So when it comes to tax evasion, you could reference assembled furniture versus unassembled furniture.
No, that's avoidance now. That's avoidance.
Sorry, yeah, that's what I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Evasion is when you lie and you say you only spend 5. But avoidance, you speak to unassembled versus assembled, or hybrid cars versus, I don't know, gas guzzling or diesel engines cars.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. And then the W8, the W9, and the W-band?
The W8 and the W-band E speaks to people or entities that generate funds in the U.S., and then W9 speaks to U.S. persons, correct?
No, non-U.S. is W8 individuals. Non-U.S. entities is W-band E, and then W9 is U.S. citizens.
Okay,
Y'all
so
can get the definition.
That's what we should reference.
Yeah.
If they generate the funds in the U.S. or not, we should speak to non-residents versus resident. I mean, non-citizen versus citizen. Okay, got
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions surrounding question 5?
Do we have to go into detail? Well, I see section 9 talks about the Patriot Act, but in reference to section 5, do we have to provide any type of history that talks about how, you know, it came about?
No, not necessarily. More to explain what is tax avoidance versus tax evasion, the forms, and then you all form up CRS and FACA on it?
No.
Okay.
What
So
form? Oh, you mean,
okay.
you mean the question?
Yeah, your review sheet. Yeah, I think I remember a question on CR. Yeah.
But
So
we should, in terms of question 5 or anything regarding tax, we should reference CRS and FACA.
FACA, yes.
Okay. And then CRS is Common Reporting Standard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so culture and governance, we just spoke about that last week, about culture in the institution. Val gave a excerpt of the paper about an institution whose chairman was removed, that falls under governance. Again, how do we establish culture in an institution? Why is culture important? What's the importance of integrity and ethics? Anybody? No? Nobody?
Sorry, I thought you were gonna
But
continue
which question
talking.
is it?
Well, for this
Question 6A. Wait, y'all have that as question 6?
Yes.
Somebody, okay.
Culture, MLRO job description?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so basically what I took from this chapter was the fact that the role of the MLRO is extremely extensive. To answer this question, I would also include the fact that within the Bahamas, it recently became illegal to not have a compliance officer working for companies or financial institutions. Let me correct myself.
Why are you saying it recently became illegal?
Because at one point it wasn't necessary to have an MLRO.
In a bank? I mean, from the law came out in 2000, yes, the banks.
You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, in 2000, yeah, for the regulated financial institutions, they had to have a MLRO on staff. And so when
Sorry, what year did you say that was?
That was 2000. when those
Okay.
laws came out and when the
Okay.
regulators started to enforce it. Yeah.
Mhm.
So now we have to look at, and perhaps the insurance industry was already regulated. I'm not certain if what year they came on board, but I know the gaming board just did the number houses in 2015, and that's when it was mandatory for them. They couldn't get their licenses, I think, in 2014 or 16, anywhere around that time until they had the MLRO. Just like the Compliance Commission is now regulating real estate companies. Now, not all real estate companies, but the ones that have a corporate service providers arm. The accountants that have the corporate service providers arm. If you want that corporate service provider's license as a real estate company, you have to have that MLRO. So for those ones to get licensed in 2019, they had to have it they had to have the MLRO on staff.
Yeah, a lot of the companies I don't think were doing it, even though it might have been the law with the MLROs, but now they're getting more.
They couldn't get
involved.
licensed. They couldn't get licensed.
Boy, Ms. Bullard, they probably were saying they had MLRO, but they had them. Because I worked in a company, I didn't know who the MLRO was for years until somebody was hired in 2011. And then the person came in to be the compliance person, but before that, I think they may have been window dress. Some of them may have been window dressing, but nobody knew who any MLRO
What is
was.
window dressing?
Pretending that they have
Pretending that they have it, but it don't exist.
Right, so they want to slap it on to another senior position.
Right,
They're saying it's operations manager on MLRO or something like that. And which brings us to the second part of the question when we talk about job description. So again, when they just slap this position onto you, and you are now compliance and legal and risk and what else? What do you do?
Yeah, that's too much.
What do you do? No, but so answer this question. What do you do?
You can ask for an org chart so that you know how much people is supposed to be hired or can be hired, I guess.
And you would base that on what?
And ask the company the number of clients that they have who are high, medium, low risk.
Correct.
And how many people they have already working in, based on their answer. If it's quite extensive, the number of accounts that they service. Then you also want to find out how much people they have working in this particular department. And you want to let them know up front that more people may be required depending on the number of accounts that need to be serviced.
Right. Okay, very good. So you want some metrics. After you would have gotten those metrics, you want to make proper determinations to decide how much staff you need. But then they still they say, okay, we give you the staff, but you can get some assistants or some juniors, use the senior, but we want you to be in charge of risk. We want you to be in charge of legal. We want you to be in charge of corporate governance or the corporate secretary. That means you ensuring all the licensing in place. Every time there's a board meeting, dealing with all the board meetings and all that sorts of stuff. What do you say?
Yeah, I think that's too much because you still need some independence and some segregation of duties.
Either the risk governance or the AML compliance or what's the third one?
Yeah, so again, we just said compliance, right? So wow, very good. You have to consider that when they say compliance, they don't understand the compliance is AML and regulatory, right? And then they have risk in that, and they think risk just falls under that. So you have to ensure that they understand that the compliance is twofold already, AML versus regulatory compliance. And then risk is a completely different department. Okay, so there's a question on the exam that will ask you for how do you structure this department, or what recommendations you would give. And so just ensure that you explain it, that I asked for metrics, and these metrics depend on how many clients this company has. And even if this company only has 100 clients, we still, like Val said, proper segregation of duties. We don't want one person having all that control, right? And also that one person being overwhelmed. Okay, so Just ensure that you explain yourself properly. I asked for the org chart. I asked for the org chart because, wow. Sorry, Val, I didn't hear you.
The risk appetite of the company also.
Right. And why we asking for this? Because more senior persons
that have to be applied if it's high risk.
Right. Right. So more enhanced due diligence has to be carried out. And then also we need more senior persons dealing with the high risk clients. And so we don't want them to say, oh, you could hire 3 junior assistants. You can't hire 3 junior assistants when you have 80% of your business being high risk. Okay? Okay, good. All right. Any other question in terms of number 6? Is this beneficial? Is this helping? Let me know your
Very
helpful.
I have a question, please. So just to be clear, right? So risk, even though in compliance we are thinking risk, but risk is a totally separate department.
Completely separate, especially like I told you, those risk assessments. Remember, I told you and my good friend or my student who was in ICA, who was at the credit union, they just slapped this risk assessment on. Of course, they slapped compliance on her, and she's just in the class. And now the risk assessment was due on June 22nd. That was just the AML risk assessment. Then another risk assessment was due in October, and she lost her job over the risk assessment because central bank had fined them and was charging them daily until it was complete. So risk is a completely different department. They're going to try and send it under compliance, but especially last year, because it was the first year that it was being put in place, the infrastructure, you could not handle that with another position last year.
Wow. So under the compliance umbrella, though, we have 2 arms. We have the AML and we have the regulatory.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So you want to be careful of just taking on, I'm the compliance officer, because they don't understand how much work is on each side of it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay,
Yes,
good.
Lord. That question that y'all just was talking about, question 6. When it says the MLRO job description, were they job description y'all were just listing off?
No, we were actually listing off different job functions. So one, risk would be a function, compliance, regulatory compliance would be a function, AML would be a function. Now the MLRO can be attached to any one of those functions. So the MLRO won't only have that as a job. Normally the person who deals with AML will be the MLRO.
No, what I mean is that I thought it was asking what exactly would a MLRO do on a daily basis when it says job description. I thought you had to go and find out exactly what they do.
No, so if you wouldn't find a position for an MLRO, it'll be for a compliance officer more than likely. Okay. Or it may say compliance officer / MLRO. Right, and then it should say onboarding of new clients, training of employees, vetting of new accounts, stuff like that.
That's what I was thinking more on that line, but what y'all was listing just now was something totally different. I just wanted to make sure I'm answering the question correctly.
Yeah, the question is going to be centered more around the type of questions you should ask.
Okay.
And what should be, what should you take on as a one-man band or something to that effect.
Okay.
Yeah. How many functions should you wear? How many hats should you wear under one function? They could just say compliance, but when you reach, use legal, use governance, use risk, use AML, and use regulatory. And then you'll be overwhelmed and perhaps go into jail because no way you could keep abreast of all of that unless you only have 50 clients.
Yeah, Ms. Bullard, like we said when we last discussed it too, that's why the regulators and stuff too have to watch these job descriptions, because almost every time you look in the paper, I think Wallet mentioned it before a couple of weeks back. I mean, they try to pack everything into the job advertised.
Yeah, with money, they just trying to cut costs, and again, compliance makes no money for the business, so therefore they do not want to invest there, and so that's why I said compliance has to strike a balance between account opening and making sure that the company remains compliant, because we don't make no money for the business. The business can't operate without us. So those accounts have to open, but we have to ensure that policies and procedures are in place, employees are trained, and we get those accounts open, good accounts open that won't come back to haunt us. So that you have to strike a balance. Okay. STRs, tipping off, cooperation with the authorities. I think this question is a scenario. What would you do? How would you handle it? What are your next steps? So.
Oh, Miss Bullet, in terms of the monitoring systems, I don't remember who it was, but I was supposed to find out information so that I could share just in case they don't work in a financial institution.
Right, yeah, so that would have been for Chantel, I think.
Okay, but I mean, it's just like I asked them for their personal account number because they wasn't trying to say nothing, but what they would tell me is that we do have something in place. They didn't specify which program, but they said it runs every night, and it's not just checking for names. The system that we have apparently also checks activity, so it does transaction monitoring, and that's on accounts as well as cards, credit cards, and stuff like that. And of course, once they have a hit, the person does investigations further, and it's checked every day, and it's run even on the weekend. So on Monday's report would reflect Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, and of course they check whatever hits come up, and they check whatever card activity comes up. They check whatever transaction monitoring comes up, and it's not just, of course, it's not just going over the limit. If they say their limit is 25K, it's not just whatever's over 25K. It's an unusual activity as well.
And the system determines, so there has to be something on the background of the system that determines what is unusual.
Right. So
correct?
I guess they put in those parameters and those algorithms, however they calculate those, but they also go off of KYC. So if in the system we chose up to $5,000 monthly, and they have 5,500, then that would pull a hit. If we put in the system that they said the amount of deposits is between 1 and 5 or 5 and 10, and they have 12, that would pull it whether that's over the $5,000 limit or not.
Okay, so why is this a secret? So this wasn't documented in policy?
No, which is why I thought we may not have had it.
But are you not in the compliance department?
I'm in the compliance department.
And this is a secret from you?
I'm in the branch. I'm not in the actual, because like you say, I'm the one in the branch signing off and giving approvals and escalating high risk applicants and stuff like that. So I'm not like at head office in the compliance department with the MLRO. Nonetheless, I'm an extension of the department, and I'm not privy to this information. Not even everyone in the department is, apparently. I'm not privy to the information. So I tell you, I don't even have World Jack for something that's so inexpensive. So, and I mean, that's their prerogative, but I guess they're just making sure it's in place, and apparently it is in place, but it's not advertised.
Generally known.
Yeah.
I have a question, please.
Persons in the compliance department should know there should be a policy on the parameters, so you even look and see if the parameters make sense, because I can tell you some of these reports were written in 2000, they are ancient, they're no longer applicable, nobody has updated it. And so if you see it, you will be astonished that we still checking 5,000, we still getting hits on 5,000, and the limit is increased to 10,000 and now 15,000. So this is why this information, I mean, I understand it should be confidential to the compliance department, because you don't want people to, okay, I know how this works, so now I know how to defraud the system and know how to stay under the thresholds. I mean, sometimes you could just figure that out if you really pay attention to the reports. But this is information needs to be trickled down, and compliance professionals need to be trained. So this should not be a secret from anybody who is anywhere affiliated with compliance. You know, you need the proper tools to do your job. You need to be able to verify that they're doing everything and I don't need to do anything manually.
And I have a question too, please. So Crystal, So that means that persons would have already, the transaction essentially would have already been concluded, right? But
Yeah,
this would pick them up in the overnight batch run.
Right. And so a lot of times we get transaction monitoring emails saying, okay, if it's not already uploaded, please provide DSF for transaction so-and-so dated so-and-so in the amount of so-and-so. So of course you're doing your frontline due diligence and making sure you have documentation in place if it falls under, you know, the disclosed transaction, geographical span, and all of these things. But I think, and it speaks to the 3 tiers where it's frontline compliance audit. One frontline does it, compliance still goes ahead and checks it, making sure, okay, we got a hit for this, so let me see if a DSF is on file for it. So yeah, so it may be on transactions that are already transpired, but I guess
so it's normally post. Is after the
Right. So Ms. Pollard, my question with that is, in a case like that, is that considered like maybe the money laundering might have already taken place, but you still have to flag this to send to the FIU?
Yeah, you still have to flag it. It's nothing you could do, and more than likely, if the person didn't close the account, you know, if the FIU needs to freeze anything, they can freeze it. But you can, even if the account is closed, they just want to know so they can investigate. This is the only way they know to investigate.
Okay, good. Because I'm asking because in the book, when I was reading it, there seemed to be some situations where I think the FIU have to give the okay to proceed with the transaction, but I think that is only when they get a heads up of an impending transaction.
Right, right.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay, Chantel, did that help? That was for Chantel's benefit. Did she's not in that field? Did that help?
Oh, I had asked 2 persons that I know that worked in auto.
That was me.
Huh? What?
No, I was telling her that was me that had asked.
Oh, sorry.
That was me that had asked for it.
Okay.
Oh, so yeah, because I had asked 2 persons, and it sounded like I was asking for money or something. They were like, "You want me to get fired?"
No, but that's what I'm saying. I work there. I'm an
AML. This was their AML policy. I was asking the layout of their AML policy. I just wanted to see how it's laid out. She's like, they were like, "You want me to get fired because it's normally supposed to stay within the company, not sent out of the company." And if any, I was like, okay, never mind.
Yeah, but she should not give you their AM policy, right? But like Crystal works in the, you know, she is an extension of the compliance department. So definitely she should know that what she's doing on a day-to-day basis, that she is protected. And
but you were asking us if we had, I mean, that you were saying that person should know how the policy look or whatever.
Yeah, the AML policy, yes, those persons that work in not that AML policy, you don't share it with the public, but should be available. Nobody should have a problem accessing policy. Crystal, the policies are on a shared drive, right?
Yes,
you could just go and look at it. Yeah, so the policy is there. Now, if they have a policy for that, that's the issue. And I don't think they have one. And so that's why she would have to ask. And if they have one and it's confidential, it should be shared within everybody's position who is affected by it. If you're a account opening or if you're a relationship manager, you should know that I rely on the system to spit out a report the next day to tell me what these people went outside their profiles, their names were checked, and these are the parameters to see if the parameters still make sense or they were from inception when the system went in place and nobody ever looked back at it. Okay. Who else wanted to make a comment? No? Be good?
Ms. Bullard, I have a question regarding the homework assignment that talked about what Bahamian law relates to the mandatory reporting of STRs. And I just wanted clarification on what the answer was for that.
The FTRA, section 25. Right, Neka? I don't have all these stuff in my head.
Right.
Neka?
No, I'm sorry, Ms. Bullard. I'm back now. I had to get up. Sorry, what was that?
Sorry, what Randy had asked a question. What
it's 20 and 21 recommendation. Or the law?
No, the Bahamian law. Yeah, so it's recommendation 20 and 21 that speaks to SDRs. And the Bahamian law is FTRA Section 25, NECA. That's correct? You remember?
I will have to look, Miss Bullet. Let me check in my phone quickly.
Yeah, so yes, it's
While
It's on the
she
proceeds
looking,
of crime,
Bullet,
huh?
I remember
yeah, that's
something
what
about
that's what
Section
I want
20.
to know.
Yeah.
Is the Proceeds of Crime Act 2018, is that separate and apart from the FTR Act?
Yeah, so
Section
POCA.
25?
Yes, because we have our own local laws that really originate from the FATF, but we have our own local laws coming under the FTRA and the POCA.
POCA, yeah.
Of 2018.
Right, so those are two separate laws then.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Two
it's the
separate acts
financial
in the Bahamas.
transaction.
Financial
Okay, the financial transaction reporting act
and the Proceeds
Section
of Crime
25
Act.
And the Proceeds of Crime Act 2018.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And usually the FTRA is kind of in tandem with FTRR to some respect.
Yes. One is the regulations and one is the act.
Act, right. Wendy, you got it.
Yeah.
So it is the FTRA Section 27?
5.
I think it's Section 25, but let me double check.
Okay, thanks.
Doing that right now.
Right. Okay. All right. So we familiar with the SDRs. We looked at the form. We see what is required. We know there's a fine for failing to disclose. We know there's a fine for tipping off. All of those may be relevant or applicable to your answer if you answer that question. We know that we are required to cooperate with the authorities. We know that sometimes we make mistakes, or somebody ahead of us may not have done what they are supposed to do, and now we are in the position. What do we do next? What is our role? You know, what are we required? If we have a staff member that did not do what they were supposed to do, they failed to disclose, what's the next steps? Okay, so you want to consider all of that. Okay, so let's move on to Ross and Wendy. You could come, sorry, Naka, if you're still looking, you could come back.
Yeah, I'm looking, checking it right now.
For us. Okay. Okay, so again, back to risk. Recommendation 1, and that says requires current research. So again, we want to talk about country first. Our risk assessment is not complete. We know why it's not complete, correct?
Yes.
Because it says recommendation 1, so you want to say countries must assess their risk, document their risk factors, and then put controls in place to mitigate that risk. The country must do that. So the country has not done that, but they have enforced that the sector, the financial services sector, do it. And they're very adamant that in 2019, if these risk assessments did not come in to the central bank or to your various regulator, you will be fined. And in fact, they did fine people. So there was, if you go online, there with thousands of seminars and industry updates regarding recommendation 1, so they could get this information into the various regulators, so the regulators could fill out their portion of this risk assessment, so we could get this information too. I don't know where we are with it at this point, but I know that the Compliance Commission was last, I think, regulatory body to come on board, and they're up and running. And so you just go online and you read about that. We know that the credit unions, I think it was in the newspapers that they were fined because they just simply got regulated by the central bank 3 years ago. And so they don't believe that they really had to do it. Plus they're overwhelmed, and then they didn't have a trained person in the position. And so therefore they got a fine. And so that's how we want to answer that question. What did the Bahamas do to update? What did they implement? I think it's the FTRA Section 5 that speaks to the risk assessment being mandatory. So we can start with the recommendation 1, what it says. Countries must assess their risk, put controls in place, We move from a rules-based approach to a risk-based approach. And the difference, if we want to explain that, then the Bahamas, by extension, put in law, FTRA, Section 5, making the risk assessment mandatory. They created the analytics department to enforce this. We receive, training, and persons who did not, submit their AML risk assessment, they got fined. And then by extension, the enterprise-wide risk assessment, which meant you had to risk assess the various departments. They were in more trouble. Okay? So, we know recommendation Wednesday. And that should be a very comfortable, easy question to answer. Correct? Y'all could say Ms. Bullitt know me and know what you're talking
Ms.
about.
Bullitt, the Bahamas got fined on this recently?
No, now don't mix it up. One is the country, the banks.
Okay.
The credit unions. I don't know. I don't know if anybody in the gaming board, I don't know. I didn't see it in the news. I didn't check. I don't know if anybody under the insurance commission, but I know half of the compliance officers from the number houses were in the class. The rest was filled up with lawyers, real estate people, and accountants, everybody trying to find out how to do this risk assessment and what has to be done. And then the credit unions, and these were people who are now in the compliance position trying to figure out what do we do? How is this risk assessment done? And I can tell you banks that were around for 20 years, because this was not being enforced, did not have it in place. And Deloitte did pop up and say, hey, we will do it for you on your behalf for $80,000. Remember we had those discussions?
Yes, I remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so the next is customer due diligence.
So we skipping the Patriot Act?
Oh, no, like I tell you, I probably looking at another version. I must pull up an old version.
Oh, sorry. The next number 9 is Section 319 of the U.S. Patriot Act.
Okay, so tell me what that is, and tell me if remember I told you one time I was filling out a questionnaire, the Wolfsburg questionnaire, and they said, "Oh, we are a Bahamian bank, but not applicable to us." And I said, "What are you talking about?"
No, they can't say that.
Okay.
Okay, so from this originated this stem as a result of the terrorist attacks in 2001. And this Patriot, actually I did look it up now where I wrote it down. Patriot is actually an acronym for, I don't have it on here, but that is actually an acronym because it's really related to the prevention of terrorist financing.
Right. So on page 21, the full name on page 21, I think.
Oh, okay. I have actually looked it up online. Okay, and it allows
I have the acronym.
Sorry, go ahead,
okay.
Ben.
I can share it. It's providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism.
Right.
It was created by George W. Bush.
Yeah. Okay, good.
And it allows the U.S. government to seize illicit funds of individuals or entities located in foreign countries, but who transact business through the U.S., like using like the correspondent banking that we spoke about. Because once you from what I remember Ms. Bullitt explaining, once you are using or doing any type of business through the U.S., because all of those transactions are cleared through New York, that gives the U.S. Treasury or the Attorney General or the related authorities within the U.S. access to come after, for lack of a better word, to come after you or to find out additional information on you.
Right, to freeze and seize your assets if needed.
Right.
Right, and then the U.S. dollar is extraterritorial.
Right.
Yeah, so all of that you can put in there. So definitely, if you have these documents to fill out, and they ask you if you're bound by it, and you don't say no, I'm a Bahamian bank, and you offer correspondent banking services. Okay, so just no.
Ms. Bullard?
Yes, go ahead.
Question. Shivago was talking this week about us, that we could ask the U.S. to, we could have a relationship with them, but we could have their currency, the U.S. dollars, as our official currency.
Okay.
So if we did something like that, then that automatically would activate the OFAC and Patriot Act, although we're already subject to it.
Right. But that would mean like how we do.
That would elevate it, but I was.
Yeah, that would elevate it, and
how do we go through Switzerland? Will that affect us, Ms. Bullock?
No, I doubt it. It won't affect that, but definitely the sanctioned countries that we do business with, like Cuba and Venezuela, I can tell you that if it won't directly affect, but they will say, well, you can no longer do business with these countries.
Even though we are doing their book through Switzerland?
It doesn't, I'm sure they're going to put in stipulations. I'm certain they will.
Yeah, my mind ran across that when I heard the suggestion from Chicago.
It's pros and cons also.
Right. But I have definitely read up on it to see what the benefit is. Is it worth it? Because I know we're having an issue now with foreign reserves and stuff like that, but I don't know much about it, so I don't want to see. I have to do some research to, understand how it will affect the economy if they do make the change. Yeah, but I know the U.S. is concerned right now about our relationship with China. And the other day, that's why they, he had called Minister Cummings, Trump had called him in to discuss the influence. They are not in support of us borrowing this $192 billion say to develop our port. And so, they were trying to block that or find some financing for us so we don't borrow that money, because recently China has loaned many countries a whole sum of money that they know the countries can't
repay.
They have, like I said, they have now acquired Guatemala's port because Guatemala went default on their loan, as well as 3 other ports in Africa. They acquired their ports. So imagine right now a pandemic. We had borrowed this money. Of course, that loan would have been default. Okay, we have to borrow so much money just to feed the people, to keep the people alive. Of course, we can't pay any bills. Would they have given us a deferral? Who knows? Or again, get a man while he's down. They may have, just as easy as that. So we need to stay abreast and be aware.
I think I saw something too in Sri Lanka where they had taken over the port too, because like you said, they know these countries aren't able to repay, so they sit back and then they let you default, and then they move over and take over certain strategic industries and economies and things like that.
Well, China is also strategic. It's just that nobody else is. They just borrowing the money and they're not as strategic in their logic. But China is, even with the pandemic, China isn't even letting the World Health Organization get too much information regarding the genesis of the COVID-19 and stuff too.
19, correct.
Ms. Pollard, can I just a comment, and I would like to know anybody else's thoughts on this. I'm just using the same example that we're talking about. Let's say these big countries like China, who have huge amounts of money to lend to people like us who are really developing countries, and we really don't have the resources, right? So we are pretty much, I guess, I want to say more vulnerable to falling for things like this, wherein the other party is probably putting themselves in a more strategic position to take over later, right?
Right.
But we are very vulnerable because we don't have it. We just don't have the capital. We don't have I think we have a lot of resources, but they are channeled, it seems to be more like in special interest direction. So generally, the general populace is not benefiting from the resources, is what I'm thinking. So, okay, so going back to this situation that happened with Dwayne Sands and the swabs, right? I just want to compare it a little. We needed the swabs, okay? And it seemed to me like the person who had the swabs probably used that as well. They dangle it in front of us because they know, okay, we need them, right? And it seemed like we weren't forward thinking enough to really realize, okay, what if they're just using this as a ruse to get here? And we also didn't ask a question to be specific to say, okay, this is only, since the plane is only cleared for cargo, we clarifying no passengers, whatever, whatever. So I'm just using that to say all of these are, I don't want to use a political slogan, but teachable moments, because it seemed like we always fall for the, we need the things, but I don't think we think the end game. I don't think we think long enough about the end game. And even if we do, I don't know if we're in a position even to refuse.
I mean, we found out where the swabs are yet.
Sorry?
They located the swabs? I'm just asking.
Somebody was saying they think that they were in, the lady was on the press conference the other day saying that the swabs are accounted for in their inventory of, I think, 5,000. The 2,500 swabs are there.
Oh, okay.
But I'm just wondering,
but
like,
could
anybody...
the Dwayne Sands be charged with corruption or bribery? Because that sounds like a bribe. I bring you swabs, so there you let in 6 individuals.
I think that
that ain't bribery.
That's an indirect form of a quid pro quo.
How is it indirect? Nowhere in the law says if there's a pandemic or force of nature that you can bend. Remember, the CPI index in Puerto Rico dropped from 65 to no rating at all. I have to look now to see if they have a rating yet because of bribery and corruption after Hurricane Maria, I think it was. Right? So these are the type of things where happen. I could do you a favor so you could do me a favor.
Right. And I think
he might have gotten something personally as well. We don't know.
If he
we don't know. We don't know.
When he was advised that 6 people, when he advised that 6 people was on that plane, he should have said, turn right around. You took a 30, 45 minute flight, turn right around and go right back.
I agree, because you don't need 6 people to drop off swabs. The
they were saying
1%.
They were saying though that the implication is that it's more than him one involved because he doesn't have the authority to let the plane land and all that. He might have given the okay to say yes, I want the swabs, but they saying at least maybe 2 other people involved. Because they were saying there's nobody, no immigration officer who's gonna let that plane land in the country based on Dwayne Sands say so. They would have had to get that authorization from their bosses.
No, he might have breached. He may have breached that and thinking that this gets a little 6-seater, nobody even know. So you never know what he did. And I am not surprised
going around because is that there's more people involved, but they're letting him take the fall for it.
Yeah, but he is too happy to take the fall for it, and I wouldn't be surprised. Like, y'all don't read the punch now, but the punch say that he can be the official opposition. He can deal with join with Reese Chipman and those other persons who have been fired already. And I wouldn't.
But guess what? People respect him now. But people respect him now in spite of what he did.
Yeah, but he's my representative, so I feel a different way. I won't say how I feel. I just feel differently about it. But I wouldn't be surprised. He has crossed Hubert Minnis a few times, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does try and go for the leadership. I won't be surprised. But he did it with Loretta after Hubert had put him in as a senator when the Lanisha Roll had resigned. He brought in Dwayne as a senator, and what's the lady's name? Loretta brought in Louis Georges and Senator Rodney Munker. And then Dwayne joined with Loretta to, as the deputy prime minister to oust him. So like I said, he's crossed them a few times already. So I feel just differently about it. But anyway, we'll get back to that. Let's let the people who want to go. What number are we on? Number 9?
Yeah, I'm just saying, so in terms of, so I guess we could look at something like that along the lines of the corruption index probably.
Yes, and,
Okay.
and bribery, because again, I can tell
Yeah.
you if the FATF was in here, that wouldn't have gone just as a, I get separate resignation. I can tell you that.
Okay, we would have been probably, we probably would have been fined or blacklisted again or something.
Of
Oh my
course, and
goodness.
you never know. You never know. That might that may have contributed to it, because I'm telling you, we're being watched internationally, and they're concerned that all of these things, you know, you get a slap on the wrist for.
Depending on who you are, depending on who you are.
Yes, yes. Okay, so everybody stick with us in the best interest of the country. Yes, thank you very much for bringing in the stuff that we need. But
on the plane too, so like they say, could be smuggling charges and whatnot also.
Right.
So it's still going back to you don't break the rules. You stick with the you stick with the rules, and then you say.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that was number 9.
Yeah.
Number 9. And okay, what do you
Bullard,
want for number 10?
Miss Bullard, sorry,
Yes?
Miss Bullard, before you move on, for number 9, so when you look at addressing that question from a testing perspective, you want to look at stating kind of like the history of the Patriot Act, and then basically saying what does it serve to do?
Yes, and why is it applicable to the Bahamas? Everything in this exam is centered around us, and how is it applicable to us, and how do we, you know, what do we do?
Okay.
It allows the U.S. to seize the funds and
freeze.
in these jurisdictions,
It allows the U.S. to get information, freeze and seize as needed. And then, like Ms. Bullard mentioned, don't forget the U.S. dollar is extraterritorial. So once you're using that, they could reach into your jurisdiction.
Okay. Okay. Good. So
and issue subpoenas upon arrival in the United States.
And we see that happened because the guy at Julius Baer, he was in charge of a Venezuelan book, and 2 years ago, they resigned from Julius Baer. They were going to Gonay Bank, I think, to have 3 of them as relationship managers. They were going to be the CEO, the head of this, and the head of that. And he decided to take a vacation before he took up his new post. Stepped into the U.S., immediately arrested. He spilled his guts. Hans Backer was implicated. Delta Bank was implicated. They have now since charged him 10 years. It's all in the papers, and all because of his, you know, dealings and what he did with Venezuelan money, sending it to various U.S. entities and what have you. There's a whole big ring, so you could read the papers. And he's in jail spending 10 years, and they're still investigating, trying to bring the other relationship managers, either from Hans Backer or Delta, to court, or, you know, to bring them before the courts. Because he spilled his guts. He talk on everybody and say, I can spend my 10 years in jail, but the rest of y'all coming right behind me. Okay, so that's exactly what they did. And now Julius Baer is closing out. I can't say because of that, but that was 2 years ago, and now this big investigation. And of course they went, even though they had already left to go to Gonay Bank. Gonay Bank didn't have a lot of reputational risks, but Julius Baer sure had it, was in the newspaper continuously. And so I'm sure they went and did some investigations. And as we know, the central bank uses moral suasion. They say, please just close out and go back to your country, right? Okay, good. Okay, so what's the last point? What do you want for question 10?
I guess the question 10, you can also start with recommendation 1, talking about the risk assessment, which can then
What's the
lead
topic? What's the topic?
The question is customer due diligence and enhanced due diligence.
Okay.
Yes. So yeah, so I was saying we could still reference recommendation 1, which will talk about risk, which could be a segue into the simplified versus the enhanced, as well as the customer due diligence.
Okay, yeah. And appetite and what have you.
And also with recommendation 1, let's not forget the Basel Committee now.
Okay.
Okay, so Ms. Bullard, for this question here, we're just basically for the meat part of it, we're just given the information as to what is required if a person is considered, I mean, on the simplified as as opposed to enhanced. What
Yeah,
is
I'm checking because I think that question may not necessarily be an essay question. I think that is more so the multiple choice and the true and false. That's what I
you have
thinking.
9 questions.
Yeah.
There are 9 choices. Yeah, 9 essays of choice. Yeah, and then some of these topics are the multiple choice and the true and false. I could remember that the rest. Yeah, so 5 true and false and 10 multiple choice.
Oh God.
Or 15 multiple choice and 5 true and false.
How many essays in total? 1 mandatory and 4 selected, right?
Right, yeah. Okay. So you pick from 9 topics, the 4 options.
Okay.
9. So for sure, you know, the human trafficking is an essay. For sure, sanctions is an essay. Tax evasion is an essay. Risk is an essay.
MLRO.
Yeah, MLRO position and job description is an essay. Section 319 is an essay. 1 or 2 multiple choice questions there too about section 319 or the act itself.
Okay.
And the persons who taking the exam online would be the identical exam as the person who's sitting as well?
I don't know. I don't know who is now taking the. Let's talk about this because we had set up the exam online for the last class, and we had 15 persons and 2 persons showed up because they could not meet the minimum standard. And so I think the University of Manchester's platform we're using, and you know they have strict rules. You can't use a cell phone. You can't use you know, any movement, they lock you out the system, all sorts of stuff. And so when the person, some of the people before came up and said that my computer does not have the camera or what have you, and it was just a disaster. I don't know if the institute, did y'all call Miss Dean? Y'all are supposed to call Miss Dean.
Oh, I thought you said this week.
Miss Bullard, I called Miss Dean, and I arranged for Sophie and I arranged for the 22nd.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, so
they're set to go in.
Wait, one at a time. Go ahead, Crystal.
No, I said I didn't call because I know you said we could call on the 11th regarding schedule.
Yes.
So I didn't call yet.
We called Ms. Bullard. We arranged our appointment to do the exam at BIPS with the social distancing.
Okay, good. So I think there are 4 or 5 versions of the exam. Please try and hopefully, you know, study and pay attention because it's gonna get harder if you have to take a reset. So please try and do your best. A lot of you are halfway there. A lot of you are going into the exam with the 35 points. So, but still study and try and do your best.
Sorry, Ms. Bullard, you said, what did you say just now? If you wait? Sorry, clarify that for me, please.
I don't know what I said about waiting. I said to call this.
Retest it.
Retest.
Yeah, or retest. Yeah. Try to do the first attempt because this exam is geared towards what we study. If you have to take a reset, some of the things, the questions are very vague and the reset seems much harder to me. So try and stick with, you know, one of these 4 versions that we have and ensure, you know, that you do your best. Like I said, most of you are halfway there already. And I feel confident about this group. Is there anybody that's insisting to take it online? I know, Ratalia, you were interested in online, and I don't know if there's anybody else. Anybody else?
Well, I don't have nothing else to do now, so I can go in and sit the exam.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Yeah, so you could speak to Ms. Dean. So everybody else good with speaking to Ms. Dean?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Well, how long is the exam?
It's 3 hours.
3 hours. Okay.
Yes. So no books, no phones. come with your mask and your car keys, and that's it. And there'll be one person per class, and that's why she's making appointments.
Oh, okay. Neka, you said you scheduled your test already?
Yes, yeah.
What is the timing? Is it like 9, 12, 3? What is the timings?
It's different times. You could check with Miss Dan. It's different times.
Yeah, from 9, Monday to Friday, 9 to 3.
Oh, okay, so it isn't like a specific time. You could say, okay, I could come 11, and that's fine.
Yes, you just need to check it with her. You just need to check
you.
it with her to see if it's okay. But yeah, like
Yeah.
in my case, I'm going from like 10 to 1.
Okay, got you. Thank you.
I think she said if you get off at 3, she probably would make provision for you.
Because I think some people were saying they weren't getting off until 3 p.m.
Yeah, I don't leave until 1, so I may have to just leave work early.
She will work. I think she will work with you, Crystal. Just call her.
Yeah, I will do. Thank you.
You're welcome. Ms. Bullard, can I say something else just before everyone goes, please? So I am confirming that FDRA 2018, the 2018 Act, Section 25, does address suspicious transaction reporting. And additionally, the Proceeds of Crime Act of 2018, Section 12, deals with the reporting of suspicious transaction. That's by all of us and the general public, because you know, this reporting is everybody's duty and responsibility, not just people who work in the financial institutions. And Section 13 deals specifically with the MLRO's duty to report the suspicious transactions. And Section 14 deals with tipping off. So I just wanted to make sure everybody saw that.
So Section 15 should be failure to disclose as well then. I know it's right after.
Failure to disclose by the MLRO.
No,
I think that's
15,
in Section 13 and Section 12.
Oh, that's the FDR.
Yeah,
that's
so.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah.
You could always look it up
Section 15
online.
gives you the Section 15 gives you the penalties for failing to disclose and for tipping out. Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, you could repeat the 3 sections.
She put it in the chat. Look
I
in the chat.
I put it in the chat on the Zoom, but I just wanted to make sure everybody saw it, because those other 3 sections are also interesting for what we're doing. So it's the Proceeds of Crime Act 2018, also known as POCA, Section 12, 13, and 14.
And then, of course, don't forget the FTRA Section 25.
Yes, and then the FDRA 2018 Section 25.
Yeah, and you want to make sure if you go and look this up, look at the 2018 versions, because there's been changes. Don't look at the 2000 version or 2002. Look at this, make sure it says 2018.
Yes, and all of it is online.
Ms. Bullard, in terms of our recording, because I honestly have not gone back to check if our last class is posted yet. Are they are posting it to YouTube? Or is there any way you can just send it to us an email like you used to, or is that too tedious a request?
I spoke to Mr. This is Miguel. He said he had to go into office to search up on the, I guess, the camera that they were using for the recording. He said if he doesn't find it, he will just upload an older lesson, I guess, that would have covered the same topic. So I was waiting for him to do that yesterday. When I called him, I didn't get no response. He told me to call him back yesterday, and I tried to, but I didn't get a response. So I don't know.
Okay. And so I'm very, very sorry. Y'all know I cut myself off from the office, and I really can't help. I was able to send y'all those Zoom classes because, you know, it's impromptu. We started on Zoom and I recorded that myself. I had my son help me as my IT person. This, y'all know, a little old and feeble when it comes to this computer.
Man, I thought that was actually an IT person come to your house, you know.
No, on the weekends, no, that was my son. And so therefore, that's how I was able to even make it, you know, and that's why I was so overwhelmed, because I used to be rowing him, send people class, do this for me. And he's like, Mommy, I'm not getting paid, leave me alone. So I'm thankful to him. He helped us all the way, and that's how we made it. But unfortunately, I don't have any access to the office, and we always get into a war of words. you know, and so let me hush because they're recording this before I be out of a job. But yeah.
So you think
So,
you'll be able to ask Miguel if he could post this recording right here as soon as possible? Because the other one used to be on
This
point.
one, and also the one from last week. So it's 2 weeks. But
No, that one is posted already.
Which one? Last week?
Yeah, that's posted on YouTube already.
Oh, that's on YouTube.
Okay, I have to check.
But this one, Miss Bullet would be able to email this one too, right?
No, she's
no,
not.
I don't have access. They blocked me out completely, and so I have no access.
How they could do that?
No, but that's what the lady
Right.
was saying. She had asked him to email, and he was saying something about trying to access it on the computer. The lady was talking, I think it was Chantel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, what we can do, I know if you go on Biff's, they have like a lot of the videos. I guess you could look at one of the older videos. And I was telling him, I said, I don't know if the information, he said information is basically the same.
I want this one.
Exactly. That's what I told him. I said, I want the one that we did this term.
I want this class too.
Yeah, so I don't know. I tried calling him, but I didn't get it. But I need it because I want to take my exam next week, Friday. So,
right.
No,
So again, I apologize. I have no control over that office, and I try to stay clear. They have me blacklisted. If I open my mouth one more time, I'll be on Walk Street. Yes, I'll be on Walk Street and Co. So y'all please, Miss Ian is give me an eye when I even ask her a question. So I please speak to Miss Ian and please speak to Miguel. And, you know, I only respond in my little classroom. It's my kingdom. That's it. If I put my foot outside, it's get cut off. So y'all please, y'all speak with them. They say I tell them how to run the institute. I can't tell them. So y'all
Well,
please,
maybe if
that's the
sufficient people request the class, then they will say, well, okay, we have to provide it because we have multiple people who ask for this.
Yeah, so a couple of y'all call him today, please, and make sure.
Yeah, y'all call him because
someone WhatsApp me his number and I'll go out too.
The lesson 2 and 3, the lesson 2, which is March 7th and March 14th, that's missing because that would have been the 2 classes before we started the online, because we started the online after the 16 when we went on lockdown. So that's March 7 and March 14 that's missing.
We could call him then, guys. We need to call him.
But question, where y'all go to look at the older classes?
On YouTube?
Biff's.
They would have been previous classes that are recorded, not ours specifically.
Yeah, our one was, the first one is there. The one February 29th is there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They're always being recorded?
No, but you all have to know. Yes. But okay, bear in mind, this is 2 groups. This is 2 groups that have been joined together.
Oh.
Remember, we had a 9 o'clock group and we had a afternoon group. So you may have been in the 9 o'clock group.
Yeah, that was the 9 o'clock that's posted on the 29th.
So I don't think the evening classes were recorded.
Yeah, because I know ours were, I don't think ours is recorded. We were
I don't think the evenings was recorded. So they
And
either recorded
the YouTube site is biffs.edu.
Okay.
BIFS.edu.
Really? On YouTube?
Yeah.
Oh, I just put in Biffs in the search.
Biffs, if you just put in Biffs, it'll come up too, but you got to look for the edu part.
Okay.
Because I think some other strange stuff will come up. Ms. Fuller, before we go, on behalf of the class, I just want to thank you for an awesome job that you did and a wonderful lecture. And actually, you inspired us to continue on to do this intermediate class after we completed the first course. And I thank you for all the information that you shared with us, the knowledge you imparted to us, the provoking thought that you helped us to stretch our imaginations and become better at doing research and critical thinking. And so I'm sure everybody else will join in to say, but I want to be the first to say on behalf of Al and I, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you too. It was indeed a pleasure. I look forward every week to speaking to you ladies and Neil, and you know, everybody kept me on my toes. I had to keep my research up to date. I know sometimes I say, oh, I don't know, but you know, I always say I don't know is unacceptable, but thank you. It was definitely interesting and we didn't fall asleep. So thank you and good job, even during a pandemic. You know, we had all had the strength to carry on and, you know, balance our home, our work life, and balance, this pandemic. So very good, ladies. I'm very proud of all of you.
Thank you, Ms. Bullard.
And good job to everyone staying at home.
Thank you.
Yes,
guys,
So marvelous.
best,
Nah, I ready for this to be over with.
best wishes on the test, guys, and
Same to
I'll be
you.
praying for all of you.
Everyone.
Yeah.
I hope to see some of you again in the future.
Yeah, so don't
In
forget to
January.
keep in the network. Yes, go together in ICA and stick together and help each other. But please remember to build up your network. We are going to be entering in some difficult times, so it's going to really, really be who you know. So don't take those Toastmasters and Rotary and for granted. They're all online, and people are finding them very useful and beneficial. So please continue to network, during this pandemic. But be safe.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. You too.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you too, and
you.
best of
Everyone
luck.
take
And
care.
I'm excited because I know I already see all the 100%. I see it.
Hey, glory, glory,
Receive
glory,
that. I
glory,
received
glory.
that. I received it.
Bring your aim for us, Bullet. Bring your aim
Last
high.
question before we all go. Looking at question 3 with the risk framework, the risk appetite, and the risk rating, that is basically the same question being asked for recommendation 1 for question A, correct?
Possibly, yeah. Possibly. Yeah. So again, yeah. So some of the same parts of it, and guess what? That's a good tip. Is if you have that risk question down pat, definitely answer both, and just don't repeat every single thing. One is geared towards what we do and what the industry has done. So that's just a slight difference.
What the financial institutions have done.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah. What the financial institutions have done, what the Bahamas has done, versus what we do at work. How we implemented, we document our risk appetite, we document our risk assessment, we put our controls in place, and you can give an example of the control we put in place because we have PEP accounts. Normally our compliance department would approve low and medium accounts, but when there's a PEP account, we let the board approve that. So that's a control. So you just explain that.
Okay, so in terms of the methodology that we spoke about with risk, is that something that we need to go into under the risk question for number 3?
Yeah, so when you talk about risk, when you talk about risk rating, you want to say you must document and understand the methodology. For instance, we would receive our country listing as well as nationality listing from the Basel Committee or the CPI index.
Right. Okay.
Right. Stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms.
Okay.
Bullitt. Appreciate it. I resonate with Nika said.
Okay, thank you. It's definitely been a pleasure. Yes, and I hope to see some of you in ICA or definitely around the Institute.
Yep.
All right.
Yes.
Ma'am.
Right.
Nika, just a question. How can I reach you or can you call me? Nika?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, so Vanya, my cell number and my WhatsApp, 424. 8318.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Bye, guys.
Okay, bye. Everybody
Okay,
take care.
everyone, take care.
Unwind and relax and enjoy your weekends first and then go to studying.
Mom, you don't gotta tell me that twice.
Plan your celebration once you get this A+.
And happy Mother's Day to all the mothers.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day,
Happy
guys.
Mother's Day, guys.
Thank you. Same to all of you.
Bye.
Okay, bye.